Welcome to the Side Hustle to Small Business podcast, powered by Hiscox. I'm your host, Sanjay Parekh. Throughout my career, I've had side hustles, some of which have turned into real businesses. But first and foremost, I'm a serial technology entrepreneur. In the creator space, we hear plenty of advice on how to hustle harder and why you can sleep when you're dead. On this show, we ask new questions in hopes of getting new answers. Questions like, how can small businesses work smarter? How do you achieve balance between work and family? How can we redefine success in our businesses so that we don't burn out after year 3? Every week, I sit down with business founders at various stages of their side hustle to small business journey. These entrepreneurs are pushing the envelope while keeping their values. Keep listening for conversation, context, and camaraderie. Matt Davis started Man Cave Basics Plus 7 years ago as a weekend side business. He started by perusing through outdoor flea markets and vintage shows, and about 3 years ago, started developing the Man Cave brand in earnest. Since then, Matt has been adding more choices to the Man Cave Basics website and formulating new ideas for unique handmade items geared towards making the Man Cave a well-decorated part of the house. Matt, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you on and hear about the business.
Oh, thank you for having me. When I learned I was going to be on, I was very, very, very excited. And so thank you for having me.
So,
that.
Absolutely. So let's just start with your background a little bit. Tell us, where you're from, what you've done for a career and what got you into thinking about the Man Cave.
It's been a crazy journey. I started in printing when I was 14. Family pulled me in, kicking and screaming.
Where was this geographically located? Philadelphia. Okay.
Philadelphia. I'm sorry. Yeah. Right outside of Philadelphia. I stayed in printing, got out for a little while, got back into it, got married. I had a former partner do a lot of damage to my print company. And it basically turned my world upside down. I had to basically dust myself up, get up, and figure out what I was going to do. It was very bleak. I started doing logo design for guys that have everything but their own logo. And being a limited business or a limited opportunity, I sat down with my brother and we basically took stock of what my assets were. A back and forth, large format printer, laser, some woodworking tools and things of that nature. Stumbled upon patent prints originally, and I was blown away by them. The images were amazing. The history behind it was amazing. The ideas, crazy ideas, solid ideas, just the whole thing about it was incredible. So I started selling patent prints, just the images on a very nice sheet, presented well.
So let's step back a little bit. So you just went to the USPTO, the Patent Trademark Office website, and got their PDFs and used those, or?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It was basically, I stumbled upon it. I got incredibly lucky. It's a government agency after all, and navigating it is it's a government agency. And so in the years since I've started this, I've taught myself how to navigate, how to search keywords, subcategories, things of that nature. So now, starting out with 5 patents originally, I now have over 6,000 images in my library. So I tell people all the time, hey, listen, if you don't see something on my website, reach out to me. If I don't already have it, I find it. So I'm doing the patents. And I started looking at it and going, I need to offer a little bit more. I need to do something. And I'm very anti-Michaels. I hope they're not a sponsor. I'm very anti-Michaels. And I taught myself how to do framing. And the way I looked at it was, again, back into my company, Man Cave Basics Plus, I wanted to keep everything basic. I wanted to keep everything simple, black and white, straight to the point. Frames, basic frames, no matting, no anything like that. And it started to grow. Despite all my efforts, it started to grow.
Okay, I love it. Let's step back a little bit in your history. So you said you started at 14, and this was the
Yeah,
family's print shop that you started with.
yeah,
So did you
yeah,
do
yeah.
anything entrepreneurial before then, or was this the first experience for you?
No, well, at one point I left the family business, got married, left the family business, and my oldest brother decided to get out of it, um, which was very smart. Um, the equipment was there. He turned to me and said, "Listen, I'm either going to trash it or you can take it and do
Right.
something with it." My then wife at the time, we had a 1 year old daughter, who was 2 years old. I quit my job, went home and told her we're branching off and we're going to do this on our own. Fully supportive.
Yeah.
Um, was it the right move? It's one of those things that taught me a lot. It taught me how to pull in my impulsiveness a little bit. So it taught me a
Yeah.
lot. Would I do it again? Probably not. If I knew about what I do now, I would have done that. Quick story: I was in Washington D.C. I was doing the Easter market, and I have a golf pad, which is beautiful. And the way I do things is, if it's damaged, I don't sell it. I don't discount it. It's one of those, hey, you can go to my website and order it. Young guy really loved this print. Not going to say I was fighting with him, but it was like one of those things. He was like, please, I'm fine with it. And instantly I went back and I'm like, it's amazing that I have a product that I have a sheet here that's damaged and the person still wants it. Yet on the other end, if the black wasn't black enough, there was complaint. And I'm like, why am I stressing?
Right.
This is what I should be doing. And so that light bulb went off, and I really turned around and looked at it. I'm like, I found something that I love. I get to deal with great people every day. I meet amazing people. I've met so many cool people, so many other entrepreneurs. My phone contact list is very well stocked now with people that are just amazing. And so I'm really fortunate what I do now. It took me 53 years to figure it out.
So let's talk a little bit about the balancing kind of the stress and demands of owning a business. You know, you've
Hmm.
done this now for a long time as a print shop.
Yeah.
You've had challenges with your partners, and things have
Hmm.
gone awry. And how do you balance that with family life? Because like you're talking about, you know, the bakery or whoever it was, and the
Yeah.
black wasn't
Yeah.
black
Yeah.
enough. Like, you know, that
Hmm.
ends up seeping into the rest of your life because of the stress of that
Yeah.
stuff. How do you think about balancing those things, and what do you do? Are there any tricks or tips or things that you do for yourself personally to
You
help
know,
balance yourself?
it's it's I'm a work driven person. My father's 83, and he still is looking for things to do work wise. Um, he just won't stop, and it's just basically it's built into my DNA. To a degree, it's a problem. But just stepping back a little bit more, I went through a divorce. I was a full time father, 24/7. I've got to point out to my daughter. My daughter and my son were 12. My son was 12. My daughter was 17 at the time. Starting this new venture, trying to balance everything, making sure they were okay. Um, she stepped up. My daughter was great. You know, it was one of those like I wouldn't have been able to do this without the support of those around me. You know, my parents supported me, my brother supported me, I had friends support me. Um, but I sacrificed a lot. You know, I really didn't date for 10
Mm.
years. Um, I made sure they were okay. That was the most important thing were my children. Now I'm at a spot where I don't have the responsibilities I did. Though as a parent, you never stop being a parent. That's always something that's going to be forever. Um, but it's a different responsibility now that the kids are grown. My daughter's 27, my son's 22. He's doing great. She's doing great. Um, so now our relationship during all that was extremely tight. So they understood, hey, Dad's got to drive up to Connecticut or he's got to drive up to Boston this weekend. He's going to be not here. But I trusted them enough where it was my kids and I have a relationship where I know everything that they've done in their short lives, and they've been able to come to me and tell me things, and we deal with it. Thank God I've never had any tragedies for them and things of that nature. But it's important from a balance standpoint and a sacrifice standpoint that you have to prioritize certain things, and that's basically what I was able to do. And they helped me along the way too. When I was doing a Christmas market in Philadelphia, and I was also running a Christmas market in Baltimore, and I had a storefront in a place called Peddler's Village in Bucks County. My mother ran the store in Bucks County, and they were pop-up stores. She ran Bucks County. I went down to Baltimore, and my father, my son, and my daughter would occasionally run the Philadelphia. So they understood how important it was to me. From everything, from the standpoint of just life in general. And they knew how much I was passionate about it. And they believed in me. They believed in what I was doing and the way I've looked at things and the way I've approached dealing with people every day. That's the most important thing. I think it is. It's just dealing with people and loving what you're doing, but being honest about it. People can see through it when you're not honest about it. You gotta love what you do. You gotta have courage. You gotta have courage.
And I think
there's so much.
And that courage part is the biggest challenge, I think, for a lot of people, because they just, they're worried about failing, quite honestly. So let's talk about that. Yeah. So in starting what you've done now, how did you think about failure? Like, what if it had failed? Well, what was your backup plan? Was there a backup plan?
Okay. So that's a great question. And I have an awesome answer to that. So I launched it on, I went to this little flea market. It used to be huge. It's Bucks County, Bryce's, and it'd been around since the 1800s. And I had 5 patents, and I started out with just big sheets, 23 by 35 sheets, which if I had seen what I was doing then, and I'd been like, oh, dude, you gotta change your whole plan around. Started to snow. It was like we were outside. It was me and my son. My son was 12 at the time, and started snow. And I was just so dejected. And I was like, this isn't going to work. But what was I thinking? And a 12-year-old, my son said, he's like, Dad, it's good. Just stay the course. And it was, and I was embarrassed for myself for a few seconds, because it's like, I basically had this little mental breakdown in front of my son. And it was almost like it was an out of body experience for him. Though he's a wise kid, it was just like, it was great. It was a great statement. I've carried that since. And the cool thing about what I do is I can try something and I can think it's a great idea, and I can take it and I can get behind it. And if it doesn't work, I move on. I don't dwell on it. I don't go, oh, this has got to work. It's got to work. And so I've been able to try different things, let them go. And so it's funny. I don't know who said it. I'm sure you do, about failure, but it's a continual experiment. So is it ever really failure if you keep learning something? I don't know if it was Edison or I don't know who it was, but it was somebody way smarter than I am. But their point was, it was like, you don't look at it as individual. You have to use it as a stepping point. So if you concentrate on failure, then that's the end of the road. You're done. But if you push on, you can take that failure and make it into success. So it's really, I like the question, because my answer is, it depends on how you define failure. It depends on how you state it. It depends on how you approach it. And I kind of approach it in a way where, I've tried things and they haven't worked, but I've learned something from it. So is it a failure? No, I don't think so. I think it's a matter of approaching things and going, I'm going to try something. It may or may not work, but if I don't learn something from it, yeah, then you could say it. But if you learn something from it and you continue to build upon it, yeah, it's never a failure.
Yeah, I think the quote you're poking around at is it's actually from Edison, where he talks about how, and I don't know how many numbers of times he tried to make the light bulb. And he said that, I haven't failed 100 times. I found 100 different ways to not make a light bulb until he found the one way to make the light bulb. And so it taught him things along the way in terms of how to build the filament for the light bulb to make it successful. So go ahead.
No, I was just saying, it's really, and that's the cool thing about, startup businesses and side gigs is, mine was a little bit different though. I was still working full time for another printer. Right. Because that's all I knew how to do, or at least that's what I convinced myself to think that was all I knew how to do. And it's funny, like I said, I'm 53 years old now, and I am now just really expanding what my potential that was always there. I just never looked at it. I never recognized it. I never gave myself credit. And I really gotta, thank my mother for that. It was one of those like keep doing it. We support you. Keep doing it. We believe in it. And I got that again. I got that from a lot of people. I got that from friends. I got that from mentors. I got that from so many people. But I just wish that I had seen in myself what I see now. And I guess we talk about failure, but there's a fear factor. I've learned to remove the fear, and try things. And it's funny, occasionally I still get worked up when I go to a new event or I'm going to do something. And after I get there, I realize I know what I'm doing. Why? And so you have to overcome that momentary fear of the unknown, I guess it is. I mean, I don't know quite what it is, but I don't like it.
For a lot of people, it's they've been conditioned to have permission to go do the thing that they want to go do. And there is nobody that's going to give you permission because you're doing it on your own.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of it, there's also nobody to tell you no, right? Like as I've gotten to do a lot of crazy things. And there was nobody to tell me no. And I got to do those things because there was nobody to tell me no. I can email the CEO of a company and see if I can get a meeting. There's nobody to tell me no. What's the worst that's going to happen? The meeting doesn't happen.
I've told my kids, and this is what I told my neighbor yesterday, that I said, listen, if you don't ask the question, the answer is always no.
Yeah. It's already no now.
So
the only thing that'll happen
why
is
not ask
maybe it's a yes at the end of it. So
yeah, but you increase your chances.
Right, exactly.
Automatically.
Exactly.
I don't know. I guess it's just I've gone through a lot in my years, and I'm now at a point where I am, like I said, happy, and I'm excited. I'm excited about working every day. So the balance there, it's I'm still working on that.
So,
but at least I'm smiling again.
That's great.
It's just
smiling. Let's turn a little bit and talk about some tactical things for listeners that might be wondering. So with building up Man Cave Basics Plus and the website and all that, are there tools or apps or technology that you've been able to leverage that you couldn't live without? I mean, obviously the large format printing, but even more kind of tactically, since that's really kind of unique to your business, are there things that really help you manage the business and help it grow?
Well, I'm gonna tackle one thing that's right there in front of us. The machinery. Like since I've started, I started with a laser printer, a large format printer, and a actual CO2 laser. I've added a wood CNC wrapper. That it's a great piece of machinery and cost effective. I've also added a plasma cutter, CNC plasma cutter. That's a 2 foot by 2 foot base again, for a very reasonable cost to get me into that market to start to do some things that I can have some fun with. So from a technology standpoint, I guess that's the first one is the internet's made information out there a lot easily accessible, and there's people out there making some great pieces of product from an actual software and apps and all that. First one is got to be the cash apps, being able to take a payment from a credit card. Since we as a society, I've watched everything shift, and now it's really heavy on the credit card side and the debit card side. So without having those pieces of equipment, those I use Pay Anywhere. Without having that, I couldn't take half the orders I take when I'm out on the road doing events. From the standpoint of organizing my business, Google patent search has been, a godsend. It's really, like I said, it just pulled the scope down, and made it user friendly.
By the way, it sounds like you've really started this whole business so you could build your own man cave with all of these toys and plasma cutters and all this stuff. But we'll kind of ignore that piece of it. Okay, maybe that's true. I want a man cave like you do. You've got done. Okay, last question.
Yeah.
So somebody that's thinking about taking the leap into turning their side hustle into a full-time business, or going from no side hustle into a side hustle, what piece of advice would you give them? Well,
I've got a couple key pieces of advice, if you don't mind. The first one is love and have a passion for what you're going to do. I've seen people take other people's ideas and try to run with it, and it's just not the same. People know when you're dealing with somebody face to face, they know if you love it or not. So you find your talent. Like when I would print, I used to look at amazing artwork coaches. I don't have it. I don't have an artistic talent. I couldn't find it. And I kept looking, and now mine is woodworking and dealing with metal. So it took me 50 years to find it, but I found it. But that would be the first thing I would say is if you love baking, start baking. If you love making soap, if you love creating, if you love doing something, people know when you're being realistic about it. I ran, and I'm going to diverge for 1 second. I ran an Aeropostale years ago, clothing store. And I would look at some of the clothing they would buy. It's just like, oh my God, what were they thinking? And then I would start to realize, I'm like, you know what? Somebody designed that. Somebody loved that. Somebody bought it from a buyer standpoint. And then somebody decided to put it out for sale. What I mean by this is you may have a talent, but you may not realize that there's other people that may love your talent. And that if you believe in it, you create your product, there will be people that will support you. You need to get out into the world and show the world what you're doing. Don't just put it up on Facebook. Don't just put it up on Etsy. You have to get out there and show people what you're doing. If you were going to rely on strictly the internet for things to happen for you, it's not going to happen. You're relying on somebody to find you and go, I need a doohickey. I think somebody's out. They're not going to find you. And that's what I do with patent prints is I went out and I showed people. And I realized when I started to build my library, people would suggest to me, do you have a lacrosse stick? I was just like, oh my God, I don't know why I didn't think of that. Or did you have this? Or do you have that? My library wouldn't be anywhere near what it is today if I didn't go out to see people. And every time I do an event, the first thing I'm told by other people, other vendors who are seasoned, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen anybody out doing this before. And so my advice is find something that you love. Find that inner spirit, that inner love of creating something, and go out and do it.
Matt, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. This has been great. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Side Hustle to Small Business podcast, powered by Hiscox. To learn more about how Hiscox can help protect your small business through intelligent insurance solutions, visit hiscox.com. That's HISCOX.com. hiscox.com. And if you have a story you want to hear on this podcast, please visit hiscox.com/share your story. I'm your host, Sanjay Parekh. You can find me on Twitter at Sanjay, that's SANJAY, or on my website at sanjayparekh.com.